Hello friends and good morning. Happy Tuesday, August 3rd. Feeling good this morning. Already got some work done. Finished one British crime novel, started another British crime novel. So that's what I've been up to. I wanted to start off the video today by saying thank you so much for your amazing comments on the last video. I wanted to share one of the comments that I thought was so amazing on my last video about separatism. I feel almost obligated by my foremothers' suffering to forego marriage or other bondage to men, hashtag not all marriages, because many mothers did not have a choice or forced themselves to settle and shrink and psychically mutate to maintain a life bound to unworthy patriarchs. Having the opportunity for freedom is something that hasn't been available to most women since, well, I don't know, a long while. I think it's thrilling to have my own mind and creative process unhindered by a guy under the influence of this nightmarish culture. That's like one of those thoughts where I'm like, oh, I wish I came up with that because it is so brilliant. And it's also important to remember that it's not just in history that women didn't have a choice whether to be treated like property or not. It's going on today in the third world. It's going on today in the first world. Go to Utah, go to Williamsburg, Brooklyn. You know, women are still treated like property to be sold off to a man. Recasting our freedom, not as some shameful and pathetic thing or something, but as like a really amazing option and choice that a lot of women do not have. It's such a liberating thing, to be totally honest. I wanted to read something else that I came across. Somebody posted a screenshot somewhere from Tumblr. I used to feel so compelled to make excuses for being single, whether it was self-deprecating jokes about myself or insisting that I was too busy for a relationship or making myself go out on uncomfortable and pointless dates just to make a show of trying to not be single. There's such an expectation that if you're single, you should be actively working to change that, and it's like, nah. There are 9,999 other things you can be focusing your time and energy on, and if you don't really feel like being in a relationship now or ever, that's cool. So I just wanted to share those couple tidbits with you guys, and I am going to see what I can rustle up for a nutritious lunch. Something that I do kind of struggle with in my life is trying to eat healthy, and actually I think vlogging healthy food is a good way to hold myself accountable. So I'm running a little low on ingredients, but I managed to make a nice little salad. Got some mixed greens with chard, which is my favorite green of all time. Got some avocado, salami, tomato, cheddar cheese, sunflower seeds, cranberries, everything but the kitchen sink.
She had communicated to me, without really meaning to, I think, that breasts were a problem. Hers had been ruined, she believed, when she had bound them tightly to achieve the flat, boyish flapper look of the 1920s. Anybody know of any good group with actual hateful or misandrous women? I need angry women in my life.
All right, another great day trying to live that healthy lifestyle, share all that with you guys, hopefully inspire you to be a little bit healthier. That's really such a big source of empowerment for women, is to take control of our health, of our lifestyle to the extent that we're able. One definition of empowerment is how many choices you have. I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but the healthier you are, the more choices you have. Trying to always eat better, exercise, and feel better. That is really a huge source of power, I think, for women that we don't really talk about enough. On the topic of fitness, let's talk a little bit about the Olympics. Laurel Hubbard did his thing. He DNF'd, definitely not female. And a couple things. There was a clip of NBC introducing him in the women's weightlifting category, and the commentators were simply stating facts, but it came off as shade. And that really says a lot when simply stating facts comes off as shade. I'll put a link to that clip and you can see what I'm talking about. Just like the first 30 seconds, you're like, okay. Another good thing was the press conference with the women medal winners. And when they were asked about Laurel Hubbard, just absolute crickets, and then a response that was worthy of gold.
It's a historic night here with Laurel Hubbard competing as the first openly transgender in a individual event. And I was wondering, what you felt about that and what you felt that it took place in your sport.
No, thank you.
In other XY competing in the women's division news, an XY individual did win silver in the women's 200 meter, which is really rather disappointing. All I have to say about that is hips don't lie. If you're XY and you have testes, you really should not be competing in the women's division, but that is only my personal feeling. And the last thing I want to talk about, which is the meat of this video, is something I've been thinking about for so long. I want to use this tweet to segue into it. It's a very difficult topic to talk about. It's a difficult topic for me to talk about. And I thought maybe in the context of a vlog and this setting that's a little bit more informal would maybe be a better place to like workshop some of these ideas, and you guys can tell me what you think. I saw this tweet related to the Olympics, and it really brought up this issue of cultural misogyny and people outside of one culture commenting on what is obvious misogyny or oppression within another culture, and who should be allowed to talk about women's oppression in a culture that is not theirs. So this is the tweet. Haven't heard Egyptian women complain about their uniforms. I did hear the Europeans complain about the bikinis they were forced to wear and about the fine that particular team received for wearing shorts. So it's every Westerner's hobby to fantasize Muslim women are oppressed. So this tweet is referring to the Norwegian women's beach handball team, which you guys have probably all heard by now. They didn't want to wear the itsy bitsy bikinis. They wanted to wear shorts, and I think they did wear shorts in a competition, and they got fined $1,700 for doing that, which is obviously absurd. The men who run this sport really saying that women need to play with their butt hanging out of their shorts or else they're going to be penalized, okay? So that's what that tweet is referring to. For context, here is a picture of a Western woman and an Egyptian woman playing beach volleyball against each other. So the question really is, who's oppressed in that photo, if anyone? Are Western people romanticizing Muslim women's oppression that, according to this tweeter, does not actually exist? Are Muslim women oppressed? Etc., etc. My initial comment I wrote on Spinster. I'll just read it to you here. The questions I ask are, would she dress that way in a vacuum without cultural influence? Would she dress that way at home alone? Would she dress that way on an island with 0 men? If the way that a woman dresses changes in those scenarios, then she is dressing for other people, men, and not herself. The burqa and the bikini both seem oppressive in their own way. They both convey the idea that a woman's body is the possession of others, that the woman is an object. And if there is an actual penalty for not conforming, then obviously it's not her choice. Am I wrong? Also with the original tweet where she says, haven't heard Egyptian women complain about their uniforms. I wonder why you haven't heard Egyptian women complain about their uniforms. There's 2 potential reasons why you haven't heard about that. 1, they do love them, or 2, they are not free to complain. Just like the women from Norway received a penalty for complaining about their uniforms in the form of changing them, I would guess that if an Egyptian woman complains and says, hey, look, we want to wear shorts and bra tops or bikinis or whatever, do you think that there's a penalty for that? There are more than one reason why you're not hearing them complain about it. I think we need to quell the idea that oppression is subjective or that oppression is a matter of opinion. There are certain things that make a situation like per se oppressive or per se injustice, like removing a woman's choice. Does the woman in the bikini have a choice to dress another way? Does the woman in the burqa have a choice to dress another way? If she has no choice and other people in the society have a choice, then she is oppressed. She is an oppressed woman. It doesn't matter if she likes the choice. She's still oppressed, okay? And sometimes people do like the choice. They might just naturally like that thing. I personally like to be covered up pretty much too. I especially found during this COVID experience that I like to wear a mask. I don't like people looking at my face in public. I especially don't like men looking at my face in public. I like to wear a hat, sunglasses, and a mask. Okay? So that is not that different than wearing a burqa. I mean, it's not. This is something that I've had to wrestle with in my mind, is like, I'm looking at these women and saying they're oppressed, and I am actually preferring that because I like to be covered up. That's given me some strange feelings, but the thing is, I have the choice. I am not going to get murdered or honor killed if I do decide to have my hair exposed. I have the choice, so I'm choosing the thing that I prefer. If the choice is removed, that's where oppression comes in. And again, it's whether you like the thing or not. If you go to a restaurant and you open up the menu and it's like hamburgers, that's it. That's the only thing on the menu. If you like hamburgers, that's awesome. That works out good for you. If you don't like hamburgers, you're eating a hamburger anyways. And what ends up happening in a lot of cases, I think, is that to alleviate the cognitive dissonance you might experience, you're going to tell yourself that you like hamburgers even though you hate hamburgers. So just because those Muslim women, you're not hearing them complain for one reason or another about their uniforms, if the reason you're not hearing them complain is because they like those uniforms, that still does not negate the fact that they are per se oppressed because they do not have a choice of what to wear. But this brings up another thing that I've been thinking about forever, which is this question of whether you need to be in a culture in order to comment on it. I started thinking about this last winter when I saw this video that was going around of this girl. I'll just play it.
So we wanted to go to see a temple, but guess what? I'm on my period and entrance to menstruating women is strictly forbidden because, you know, what's going on down here, it's completely unholy and very dirty.
So this is a white European woman who has gone to visit Indonesia, and she's been denied access to a temple, which she wanted to go as a tourist because she's menstruating. And what struck me about this video was not the video itself, but the tweet in which the video was contained, which said something like, "I just can't with this white woman." What's happening here is that this woman is pointing out what is obviously misogynistic, oppressive towards women. It falls under that per se oppression category. And she's being shamed for it because she's not part of their culture. She's an outsider looking in, and she's pointing out what is clearly misogynistic. There is no question about whether this is misogynistic or not. Let me just read you some of the tweets that people replied to this. Is that really hard to respect others' customs and beliefs? Like, come on. Very uneducated and rude, hiding behind the so-called feminism ideals. You follow the land you are in. Respect the culture. She is too Western and isn't familiar with culture shock. It's better for her to stay home and stop traveling. There's no women discriminated, girl. They have beliefs that period women are vulnerable to black magic and that rules are actually to protect you. To travel is to learn about other people's cultures. If you don't accept this fundamental, just stay at home. And then finally we have this pretty based guy here who's saying, what's the problem with her? She's understandably protesting against the taboos and superstitions of patriarchal societies and religions, just like many other women around the world. So this white woman has commented on misogyny she's seeing in another culture, and people are saying, be quiet, stay home, you're white, nobody wants to hear from you, shut up, white lady. Calling out obvious misogyny is not racist. She's not being racist. You know what is racist? saying someone's opinion shouldn't matter or should be silenced because of the color of their skin. That's racism. All of these people on Twitter commenting about this woman are saying she should stay silent, but who benefits if we stay silent? Who benefits? The oppressed people or the oppressors? Why do they want her to stay silent? Why do they want her to stay silent? Why do they want her to stay silent? That is the huge question. I want to talk for a second about what I think is the ultimate example of a white lady commenting on a culture that is not her own. Commenting on oppression in a culture that is not her own. And that is Harriet Beecher Stowe. Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote the best-selling book of the entire 19th century next to the Bible. So the best-selling novel and the best-selling book next to the Bible was Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was published in, I believe, 1852, and in the last 48 years of the 19th century, that book sold more copies than any other book in the entire 19th century. I'm trying to hammer home like how popular this book was, right? It was popular the world over. She was one of the best known Americans in the world. Uncle Tom's Cabin shed light on the intense cruelty and injustice and just how shameful the practice of slavery was. It opened people's eyes who were not aware of the truth. This was a shocking book, right? People had their eyes closed, their mind closed, especially people in the North. They were like, that's a thing down in the South. We don't need to think about that because that's not part of our world or whatever. And that book opened people's eyes. In fact, when Abraham Lincoln met Harriet Beecher Stowe in 1862, he said, "So you're the little woman who wrote the book that started the Great War." Abraham Lincoln himself gave credit to one of the main reasons we went to war was because of this book opening people's eyes. Harriet Beecher Stowe was a white woman from Connecticut who was living in Ohio from the North. She was commenting on a culture that was not her own. And people back then could have said, and I wouldn't be surprised if people did say, shut up, white lady. This isn't your culture to comment on. You're not involved in slavery. You're not part of this. She had this story to tell, and she wanted to make an impact. And she did. She made an incredible impact. She told a story that was not her own. She dipped into a culture that she was not a part of to comment on it and to point out the ridiculous oppression and cruelty that were a part of that culture. Should Harriet Beecher Stowe have just minded her own business? Maybe she just didn't get that culture. She wasn't inside that culture. She didn't get that culture. She should have just stayed quiet. That's what these people sound like when they say that Westerners love to romanticize Muslim women's oppression. That's what they sound like when they say, you don't understand this Indonesian temple thing. That's outside of your culture. You should just stay home. You should just stay home, Harriet Beecher Stowe. We don't want to hear from you. Do we have the power to influence cultures outside our own? Should we speak up when we see obvious oppression? If we stay silent, who benefits? The oppressor or the oppressed? Who is trying to shut us up? Who is trying to shame us by calling us Karens, by calling us white, by threatening us with the idea of racism, that we're somehow being racist or culturally insensitive by commenting on this stuff? I think these are really important questions, and it's what came to my mind when I read that tweet. And so I wanted to share it with you. Now I've talked for way too long, so I want to say thank you so much for watching. I cannot wait to talk to you guys in the comments. Absolutely would love to hear what you have to say. I know it's a super sensitive topic, but we're all just here to learn from each other. I really want this community to be a place where you feel safe to talk about whatever you want. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.